here we are, the sketchbook tour. This is the first time I'll be touring a sketchbook that I have completed recently. I've toured a couple sketchbooks in the past after waiting a while, but this one has been finished last month, so you're getting a recent sketchbook this time. This is the Royal Talens Art Creation in the roughly A5 size. I believe it's 13 by 21 centimeters. And this is the yellow cover. I can't remember the exact name for it. I think it's like golden yellow or something. This sticker is by Sara. I'll leave her info on screen and also in the description, along with any other stickers we come across. I'll also timestamp the video, so if you aren't interested in this page and want to get straight into the sketches, feel free to do that. But first of all, we have the opening spread and what I refer to here as my North Star page. So over here though, we'll start with this. We have some things I picked up when I went to Gen Con last year. And Gen Con is a board game, card game, TTRPG game convention. And I picked up a bunch of business cards and also business sticker from artists that I saw in the artist alley, and we have, I'll just show them on screen for you, make sure that you can actually see that name, and this one and this one. These two stickers here were from a sticker sheet that came in a card game box. So when I was at Gen Con, I picked up the card game Good Puppers, and that had a sticker sheet inside. So that's where those two come from. This is a replacement Copic marker because I managed to get a set of Copic Chow markers ages ago from a charity shop, but it was missing one of the markers, and this is the marker that was missing, so I ended up grabbing a replacement for it. These are just stickers from stores, and we have another sticker that came from the same pack as this one, but it's Sephiroth, and that's Zack from Final Fantasy VII universe, from the Final Fantasy VII universe. This is by Denise Soden over at In Liquid Colour. You might know her as In Liquid Colour on YouTube. Let's see, what else is there? This is a flower from my wedding bouquet that I ended up pressing in the book. So this, as I mentioned, is the North Star page, and the sketchbook was started on the 9th of June 2024 and finished on the 1st of April 2025, which makes this, I think, if I'm doing quick maths in my head correctly, I believe about 10 months it took me to complete this sketchbook. As I mentioned, this is my North Star page. I am going to do a video on how I set up a North Star page, what its purpose is, etc. But to give a very brief thing, what I put on my North Star page changes every sketchbook, and it is usually something that is easy for me to just flip to the front and refer to. So it's what I need most at the point in time I'm using a sketchbook. And for this particular sketchbook, I had my current art interests and the projects that I wanted to work on during the point of me doing the sketchbook. So we have things here like characters, creatures, animals, story world building, comic development and practice, thumbnails, illustration ideas, illustrations, portfolio, art studies and courses, experiences and memories. And then down here I have actual projects that I wanted to work on during this sketchbook. So let's get actually into the sketchbook now. And we're starting off here with a swatch page. I don't particularly like the first sheet in sketchbooks where it's glued down differently to the rest of the pages. Sometimes I'll use this page, sometimes I'll just leave it for swatches, and that's what I did with this. These are all art supplies that I brought with me when I was visiting the US over summer last year. This sheet I ended up leaving blank. Again, sometimes I start here, sometimes I start here, sometimes I start on the next page, and that is where we'll be next. These are things I picked up from supporting Tori on Patreon, and this is another business card from a jeweler. that's his information there. So this is actually the first page. We're 5 minutes into the video, but this is going to be a long video. So this is the first page of the sketchbook, and we have some ballpoint pen studies over here and some pencil studies over there. This is a study of just some armor that I found, I believe, on Pinterest. This is the Crystarium axe, if I'm remembering correctly, the Crystarium axe from the video game Final Fantasy XIV. I main healer, I main scholar, but my off class is warrior, and that is the warrior's main weapon, is the big axe. Over here we have a cheetah and a lion, lioness specifically, and what I did for this is I used pencil, and then afterwards I drew a pencil box behind them and then filled that in with a grey Copic marker. And because Copic markers go through to the other side, I ended up taping in this sketch here that I did on Strathmore toned tan paper. And I did this while I was at the airport flying to America. Having a bit of my tea here. I've got a cup of tea. And I just did this in brush pen and white gel pen. That was the Jelly Roll, is the kind of gel pen I use. This was done with one of these Zebra Sarasa Clip gel pens. That's what I did for that. Some colour pencil layering there. And then here we have some more pencil, and this time an acrylic marker. This was a Posca in the background. So we have, I believe that is a wolf eye, a portrait, a flower, and then down here we have some food that I was having that week. I think it's a it's a quesadilla. The quesadilla with guac, sour cream, and salad. This was a plan for a painting that I ended up doing. So usually when I do thumbnails, I don't fuss around with them in terms of trying to figure out proportion or anything like that. I'm just trying to get an idea down. And I was trying to figure out where I wanted to place the cat in the portrait. So this is a portrait of my friend's cat, Akko. And first of all, I wanted to decide whether I wanted to do it portrait or landscape, and also decide where in the frame I wanted the portrait to be. Another thing that I do when I'm coming up with illustration and painting ideas is I do a lot of note-taking as well. And this was an initial rough sketch which was done in ballpoint pen. All of this was ballpoint pen. All of this was ballpoint pen. Just to try and start capturing her likeness. And as I wrote there, smoosh profile in more. Because I elongated her a little bit too much, so I needed to smoosh her in a bit. So that's a very typical painting process for me, is thumbnails and notes, rough sketch to figure out things, figure out what I need to change, and then go into the painting. We have some warm-ups here, and also just some planning. So these are some dexterity exercises that I did when I first started drawing, and I occasionally do them just to warm up or just to get me going. If I'm feeling rather sluggish that day, I might just do a page of warm-ups that I'm used to doing in the past. So we have here freehand lines. All of this is in ballpoint pen. Freehand lines up there, This is a perspective exercise where you cut into and add on to a block. These are ellipse exercises and then also just carved line exercises, and you do them as an S shape. Some ideas for illustrations and borders here. I haven't actually done anything with these yet, but I do go back through my old sketchbooks to find ideas again. Sometimes there'll be little thumbnails, little pieces, but also sometimes they'll be written down. So those are ideas for illustrations up there. This was a task list. And right here I wrote, I want to create some more complex illustrations involving backgrounds and or environments. Consider this when thumbnailing in future brainstorms. Here we have 2 rough sketches for illustrations I want to do. We have over here Biscuit, and I'll leave the social media tags so that you can go off and look at Biscuit. Do recommend. This is Peanut, my cat Peanut, and she was very interested in my wedding bouquet. So this is a sketch based on her enjoying the wedding bouquet. We have over here more dexterity exercises. This time it's just freehand circles and ellipses and freehand cross-hatching. All of this page is in ballpoint pen, apart from this, which I'll get into. This was done plein air, so this is just a black ballpoint pen. This was done with a Tombow marker, the water-based Tombow markers, and then red ballpoint pen on top. I have it as a short on this channel, but not a full video. But I do have this as a full video. So this is the same idea. It is the Tombow marker first and then doing red ballpoint pen on top. But in this case I did a little graphic background using a black acrylic marker. And then I've got just some note taking there for YouTube video ideas. These are some morpho studies. So a big part of, I'm losing my voice, one moment. Cup of tea to the rescue. These are some morpho studies. I really love the morpho books for, I've got one down here. Ooh. I'm just going to censor it. I really love the morpho books for studying anatomy. They're not for everyone, but they are for me. And I usually go back to them occasionally. So this is purple ballpoint pen and I was going to say colour a pencil, but I think I actually shaded that with the ballpoint pen. This is just an elf guy, an elf dude in pencil. Some more morpho over here. And then we have a figure drawing here, which as you can see, it just started getting larger as I went down. Drawing from life. Just drawing from reference. These are some Sakura Pigma brush pans that I picked up. They're waterproof. This shows up blue on camera, but it's actually green. We have some just studies here of portraits. This one I ended up struggling with, so I did this one after to put the face in a box and then figure out the perspective that way. This was studying for an illustration I wanted to do, and I wanted to try and figure out how to do the hand. So all of that is just straight up in ballpoint pen, no pencil underneath. So this is the planning for a collab that I participated in last year. Since last year I've been joining more and more collabs and it's been really fun. I've joined them with a few different artist communities now, and this was one of the first ones I did. So we did a botanical collab, it's on the channel, and that was the planning for it. Some more Tombow markers and red ballpoint pen studies, but these are all polar bears. These are some supplies I picked up while I was in the US. I use Blackwing Pearl pencils, so the white ones, and I've been wanting to try the other kinds, but I can't find singles in stores over here without having to spend a lot of money online just to get singles. But a physical store in the US actually had singles of 2 of them, so I picked those up to try out. I also picked up some fine liners, and they've been really fun just as a sketching tool. Then we just have a bunch of really rough thumbnails for ideas. This is one that I want to do soon. That's Morpho again. This, I don't know if you can see, but there is actually a sketch on that page. It's very, 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 very light, and it's of a tiger and some flowers. That's a thing that I want to go back and revisit at some point. These were drawn from life in ballpoint pen. This was me doing some shape design because I want to do some comics with peanut and coconut, and I wanted to try and differentiate between the two of them with more than just their coat colours by actually doing some shape design. So that was what I was doing here. Got some note taking again, just some scribbling. Then another elf guy. This here is Joe Weatherly studies using the Weatherly Guide to Drawing Cats. This is the initial planning for a piece that I did last year digitally, and I've got a video on the channel for this too. This is drawing from life at a cat cafe. So we've got Daisy, and then we've got Arlo. So I did these from life, just in pencil. This was a rough sketch for an illustration. I haven't yet done anything with that, but I probably will at some point. This was just a portrait study from reference in ballpoint pen. That's ballpoint pen, and then the Sakura brush pens you saw earlier. I've really been enjoying using the orange one for sketching. More Morpho. Identify these simple shapes in reference from different angles. So one of the things I was really studying at this point were limbs, especially the arms. This was a cat using Kohinoor Blue, the 2mm clutch pencil leads. Just a random head, a random elf head. This was just done in brush pen. You can see a little bit of pencil underneath. And then the orange brush pen again. This is coconut. And I did this just in ballpoint pens. There was no pencil sketch underneath. It was ballpoint pen and the white jelly roll. If you see white in my drawings, it's typically the white jelly roll, and I use the 0.8 size. And then in the background I did some Copic marker, and that's on Strathmore Toned Tan. It was a really fun way. I was just checking to make sure that I didn't need to censor anything there. It was a really fun way of sketching, but it does take a really long time to build up all of that texture. It takes a very long time. Just some warm-ups here, messing around with some Copic marker swatches as well. This was a gesture video using Jess Draw Party. I really recommend them on YouTube. They do about 20-minute long gesture sessions, but instead of them being just still pictures, it is a recording of the model holding the pose. So it's a little bit more like being in life drawing. It's not the same at all, but it is a little bit more like being in life drawing. So these were the first set of poses, the second set of poses, and then the final pose. And then here I had a list of things that I wanted to work on in terms of like studying, and also focuses that I wanted to have for my illustrations and things. So as you can see here, I was saying that like the shoulder and the arms and the hands and limbs and things were a big part of what I was studying at this point. This is a study using the Lanchet Wedding reference pack. These are some ravens. I believe I did a YouTube video for this. And I was using, if I'm remembering correctly, I was using the Blackwing mat that I picked up earlier in the sketchbook. Okay, I've censored all of the ones that YouTube would get angry at. These are some morpho studies. Again, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to study the shoulder block, so this is me studying that area. And over on this side, which I will uncover, there are some thumbnails for a little one-page comic idea. One way that I am trying to slowly get into building up the confidence and practice to get into comics is by doing one-page things like this. We're back in safety again. Some thumbnails up here for an illustration. I haven't done that one yet. Some thumbnails here for an illustration. I haven't done that one yet. And a thumbnail here for an illustration. I haven't done that one yet. Those were done using the fine liner that I picked up at that art store. These are in pencil. This is in pencil. This is a study of the Aspen Witch reference pack. And I ended up turning this into a digital illustration, but changing things. I turned her into like more of a witch and this a cauldron and things. This is a study of a little keychain that I have of Frieren. This was done plein air, so well, partially plein air. So I did the ballpoint pen sketch. This is black ballpoint pen. I did that plein air, and then when I got back, well, while I was there, I noted down the colours I was seeing, and then when I got back, I got some colour pencils and actually went in and coloured it based on what I saw while I was there. This is some studying of some of the first pages in Frieren. This is another thing that I've picked up while doing courses on comics, is to learn paneling by studying paneling. We have here, this is from life at a cafe, so this is cafe drawing. We have one of my favourite pastries up here. I love pain au chocolat. This is a pencil sketch of a mountain lion. This again is another case of a really pale sketch. This is the raven on an orb earlier that you saw a thumbnail of. I was going to do a rough sketch of this to plan out the illustration, and then I had never ended up continuing from this point. But I do want to go back and do this illustration and revisit it at some point. This was just a doodle, just a lion, cartoony lion doodle, using the purple brush pens and blue ballpoint pen, and then a pale blue colour pencil that I like rubbed into the paper. So that was done without an undersketch, it was just done in ballpoint pen. This is Peanut. This was done in pencil. This I really want to turn into an illustration. I really want to. She looks so cute. I really want to paint this. This is the thumbnail for... I will get it out. So this is the thumbnail and planning for an illustration that I ended up making. So this is the illustration. It is on 12 by 9-inch hot press paper. And I did it in ink and watercolour. So that is that. And that was what it started its life as. So I did this straight in fine liner and I wrote some notes. It's quite pale, so I'll say what it says. Grey rock with red-orange lichen, light earth green grass and sandy rock foreground, muted grade, cool green left foliage with yellow flowers, which I did end up changing. Background, fading trees with gradient. That's not what I ended up doing. So these were some initial ideas, just trying to get what was in my head on paper as fast as possible. This is the scripting and planning, I think it's more planning rather than scripting, of a comic short that I want to do with Peanut. These are studies of Heikala and how she draws cats. I feel like it's useful, at least for me, when I am studying how I want to stylize something, to look at a variety of how things are stylized, from very simplistic to more detailed and realistic, and then see where I fall in that. So I love how Heikala simplifies things, and that was what I ended up studying, as a more sort of simplified essence of a cat. And down here I wrote notes on something I was eating at a cafe, which was a ploughman sausage roll, which is like a Glamorgan sausage or cheese and onion potato mash wrapped in pastry with a smoky flavour and then served with chutney. And they also had that. I didn't have this, the person I was with had this, but there was a fudge brownie with honey and salt. I got to try a little bit of it though, and it was very nice, which is why I wrote it down. Because I want to eventually deconstruct those things and try and make my own. So this is another Peanut. That's another Peanut. Those are Peanuts. This is me trying to stylize her, exploring how I might want to do that. These were done from a trip to the cliffs. So the North Seas played a big part in my life, and I do get a lot of inspiration from the North Sea, so I ended up doing a little sketch page here of a little autumn walk. So this would have been around October time. Just an elf dude. This is a thumbnail for, again, like a character idea, illustration idea that I haven't done anything with yet. And that is a tiger that looks like it's face palming. So ballpoint pen, pencil, fine liners. This is planning for a character that you will probably end up seeing at some point. This is just me planning, so I use my sketchbook to help me plan what I'm doing, what I need to study, what my task lists for things. This is a study of some mushrooms out in a field near where I live. This is Sky, who is currently asleep behind me, and one of her nicknames is Pumba. We don't know how Pumba ended up becoming one of her nicknames. It just sort of was one of those things that naturally developed. And here she's being a grumpy Pumba because she was meowing about her food. She's the kind of cat where she will have a completely full bowl, but she will complain about her food. These were studies from life when I went on a trip to Sheffield for a weekend. I'm not sure if it was a weekend specifically, but we stayed overnight. This was drawn in one cafe, and then this was drawn at another cafe. And it was done in ballpoint pen. That one was ballpoint pen, and then the orange brush pen again, and then this one was done in fine liners and brush pen, and then the orange pen again. These are studies from reference in pencil. It's a little like mannequin studies. And then a character idea for an illustration here of a tiefling character, original character that I've called Clara. And I'm going to be doing this illustration at some point soon as well. Again, playing around with stylization, what I want to do, what I don't want to do. This here is something I drew from life at the Ruskin collection, so this was also still in Sheffield. At Sheffield there is a gallery exhibit called the Ruskin Collection. I've done a blog post on this, so I won't go too far into it, but it's basically an exhibit designed for people to sketch things. And I had my sketchbook on me, so I ended up sketching while I was there. This is some thumbnailing for a 4-panel comic about Peanut and the fact that she always has her claws out, which I want to revisit at some point. As you can see here, keep going, keep trying. So just again, trying to play with eyes, hair, stylizing the face. Still not quite in a place I'm happy with yet, but keeping experimenting. This is done in the gel pen again, and then with some pencil, just graphite pencil shading. This is red ballpoint pen. This is pencil and then the blue Posca marker. These are some studies from a course on head drawing that I took a while back, and I occasionally revisit certain things just to practice and to keep up my like memory and everything. Planning for November, so I had a mushroom collab, which we'll get into in a second, some comic planning, ink illustration practice, and then finishing the raven. So I did end up making the raven into an illustration. That was a different raven though. Planning the mushroom collab, a little task list of, well actually this is a list of illustration ideas that I had and which ones I wanted to do next. These are some initial ideas for the mushroom collab. I was going to do like a fairy girl with a mushroom umbrella. Another idea down here is a little fairy guy hiding under a mushroom while it's raining and him sticking his hand out to see if it's still raining. This is notes from a Lightbox like panel. I was going to say lecture, and it's not a lecture, it's a panel. These are studies of the shaggy parasol mushroom, for me to understand the mushroom for the illustration that I wanted to do. So these were all done in pencil. I think these were done in the Blackwing Pearl pencil, and then the orange brush pen behind it again. Again, more thumbnailing for the mushroom collab. I usually say what bits that I like and what bits I want to adjust. So this means move it up whenever that symbol comes up. That's like a shorthand for me, meaning you need to move this way. This is just a study of an insect head. I did some alcohol marker on the other side, so it's bleeding through here. So this is just note taking. This is another collab that ended up coming up. So here we have a study of a mushroom, and this ended up being what I actually ended up doing for the mushroom collab. I took this sketch and I ended up doing a watercolor illustration based on this sketch. We have a dog down here in pencil. So this is ballpoint pen over Copic marker, and then some white Posca. White Posca is not my favourite for using for white. I prefer using Jelly Roll. It's just a little bit too transparent for me. This is a ballpoint pen portrait. And then rather than the background being acrylic marker, couldn't think for a second that acrylic marker, that's actually fine liner, which gives like a textured effect if you do it that way. And then this is a brush pen cheetah. This was drawn from life. This is my cat Whizbit, and she is very judgmental, if you can't tell. This was me sat next to her on the sofa, and she looked at me like this while I was drawing her. And then we've got more of that orange in the background. This is kind of drawn from, it's my own hand. So it's drawn from reference of my own hand. Then this was drawn from reference, I believe it's from Pinterest. And it's two separate studies. This is planning for another illustration. I did a video on the like ideation process of this. So once we get to the next stage, I will show the finished illustration. But this is the very first stage. And this is the thumbnails and notes. And originally the idea that I had was just a deer in the forest, and I wanted the foreground trees to have lichen on it, and that was kind of it for the idea initially. And I wrote down things like my ideas on the contrast I wanted in it, the colours I wanted in it, and things like that. Down here is thumbnails for another illustration that I did, and then this is just a tiger sketch in pencil. These are more thumbnails of the tiger illustration. That's what I ended up liking, and they're hiding. Where is it? There it is! Yay! Okay. So this is what I ended up doing, and this is pencil and watercolour. So it started out life like this, ended up being this. Some more dexterity exercises, some more morpho. This is green ballpoint pen and colour pencil. This is a sketch from photo reference that I took while I was at the Ruskin collection. So I did some sketching while I was there, and then I also took reference of some of the crystals and other things while I was there, and I did that back home. This was a day that I just, you know when you just have a day that it's just not happening? This was a day where it was just not happening, so not today. This was some initial really rough planning for a Draw This in Your Style that I joined. I'll get that one out as well. So this was some very early planning. So this was the first one I came up with just to get an idea down, but she ended up looking really creepy and long, so I smooshed her down. And this is what I ended up doing for the Draw This in Your Style challenge. This was some thumbnailing for how I wanted to arrange the illustration as well. And then down here there's a couple things for ideas that I had for illustrations, but I just wrote them down as sentences rather than planning them out, and then just some more dexterity circles that are really, really pale. This, I was going to do a page of studies of this artist, but I only ended up starting one, and then I ended up going off and doing something else, never came back to that page. This was planning for, well, it wasn't even planning. This was just a sketch I did of a character, planning out a character from one of my stories called Lady Isabella, who's a half-elf. And it's heavily inspired by the like very, very early Renaissance clothing in Europe and how women would hold the long trains and things like that. And that ended up becoming my first Draw This in Your Style. As in, so the thing I just showed you was someone else's Draw This in Your Style challenge. This is what became my first Draw This in Your Style challenge. So I ended up creating this. Ooh, there is a book on it. There we go, little bug. I don't know how you got on there. And this was done in ink and watercolour and colour pencil. And that was my first Draw This in Your Style. We have some thumbnails here for an illustration that I am currently in the process of planning. And then here is some scripting for a 4-panel comic, and then just some task lists. This I did a video of. This is planning for an illustration. This is studying for a character. So these are both studies in ballpoint pen of clothing on Pinterest, specifically for some characters that I'm wanting to develop. So I'm studying clothes, and then I'm going to come up with their clothes based on what I study. This is an idea for a character as well that well, not even just a character, but a series, a species in one of my stories, which is centaurs, but with big cat bodies. So not just lions and things, but also lynx as well, caracoles, all sorts. So I don't know why she's Spider-Manning, okay. I still don't. Coming up with a potential illustration to explore there, so another thumbnail. This was the second thumbnail for planning the illustration I showed earlier of the mountain lion on a rock. Just some ballpoint pen and graphite pencil. That would have been from reference. That was just from imagination, just another random elf guy. And I didn't really like how his nose came out, so I ended up doing a little bit more of like a graphic, structured nose underneath. These were both plein air, so I did these outside. I was sketching this first. And it's called The End of the Hedge because this hedge was in the process of being cut down, and I sat there while it was being cut down and drew one of the stumps. And while I was drawing this, one of the plants next to me, there was a breeze and a bunch of the seed pods started flying away. So I then sketched the thing and then drew that bit from memory. These are a bunch of thumbnails for illustrations. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 thumbnails. We have some of me messing around with my mechanical pencils, so that's as dark as my mechanical pencils get on this paper. And that is a ballpoint study of just something in my house. I was just sat down drawing stuff on a shelf. This is a study from reference. And this is Rove from Monster Hunter. I fell in love with him as soon as I came across him in the story, and that is all I will say. I will not spoil. But I love Rove. This was a sketch that I did on, this is Hanamulla grey paper, and I left it this way intentionally. I did a really rough graphite sketch, and then while I was doing the rough sketch I had the idea of only finishing half of it, so that was what I ended up doing. And that is white colour pencil, graphite pencil, and I think that's it. Yeah, there's no white gel pen, so it's just white colour pencil and graphite pencil. And that is a, I tried to do a very fast study of a lion and note down what I struggled with, so I made her really long and I made the head too small, which is I wrote down stuff like that there. Because I started planning for drawing animals from life, so I did a bunch of, again these are more Joe Weatherly studies, so I did a bunch of studies using the Weatherly Guide to Drawing Cats book, and then I did a bunch of studying lions from videos and from pictures, and trying to focus on being quite fast and seeing what I was struggling with when drawing fast. So this was photo reference. Some of the notes I put is overlap more, gesture stiffened with the structure, revisit poor anatomy and forms. And then this is what I did while I was at Yorkshire Wildlife Park. So I started off with some really loose ballpoint pen gestures of the cheetah, just to get my pen moving. I have a whole video on what my process was on the channel, so I won't cover it too much, but the idea was to overcome fear and block and everything by just getting the pen moving, get me going, get warmed up, and gradually get there. So you see the process of me gradually warming up. This was a sketch I did from life as well after that spread. There's a whole story that goes along with this and why it's half finished. It involves having to escape a lot of loud noise. I did leave this page blank to then potentially do the pose again, but I didn't get around to doing that before finishing the sketchbook. These are some studies that I did on a solo travelling day out. So I did these at a cafe, and then I went fossil hunting on the beach. I will just mention again, like, make sure that you follow the rules of your country and your location and everything. You are allowed to take fossils from the beach where I live. This is one of the fossils that I picked up while I was there. And I originally did this all in just black ballpoint pen, and then when I got home I added a little bit of shading with graphite pencil. This was just me messing around with potentially creating a small kit of Copic markers for sketching outside. I was trying to figure out what blues I'd want for drawing outside, what greens I'd want and things like that. And what browns I'd potentially want for taking with me for, say, drawing animals and things at the zoo or anything like that. Planning for illustrations. So here we have like finished Bella portraits. This is the Bella portrait. So I'll just, again, I put down task lists in my sketchbook. So secondary shadows, darkest warm tones, ear cast shadow, eye detailing, white whiskers and highlights. So I was putting down what I needed to do that painting session. So this is another painting I did, which I will get out. So this is planning for this painting, which is also on my channel. This is watercolour and a little bit of white gouache. And it was a artist collab for, I think, International Pet Day. So this is my dog, originally my partner's dog, but I have since joined her family. My dog Bella. And I did a rough sketch to capture her likeness, and then also a little value thumbnail sketch down here to plan the values. This is a ballpoint pen sketch of a polar bear head that I didn't continue, and then a full page here of colour pencil sketches of polar bears. And this was a video as well. That was a draw with me video. So that was red colour pencil, and then I got out a blue to finish off like a frame. This is a red ballpoint pen sketch of a polar bear based on one of the photos I took of the polar bears at Yorkshire Wildlife Park. This is planning for an illustration idea. And the idea for this illustration comes from a song. And this was done in the pink fine liner that I picked up way earlier in the book. Some figure drawing. Just some like little bits and pieces here. So we've got like the profile of a face, an ear, and then all the way up there there's a structure of a hand. This is planning for a illustration that I wanted to do entirely about a pigment that I picked up. So Lana, she recommended a pigment to me. I asked her to recommend a pigment that she thinks I would hang on, let me reword this, my brain's not working. I asked her to suggest a pigment to me that she thinks I would like, but what is one that I wouldn't automatically pick myself, and she chose PR178 Perylene Dark Red by Schminke, and I ended up picking that up as part of my studying project this year. I'm trying to learn more about watercolour pigments and things by choosing a few and then really studying those, and that's one of them. And I ended up coming up with the idea of a cherry fairy because she mentioned to me that it is the perfect cherry red. So this is one that I am going to be doing soon, hopefully. This was done plein air, just a study of a leaf, some more dexterity exercises. These were done from life. This was done from a photo. So when I went on that fossil trip, this is one of the fossils that I found, potentially a fossil, I couldn't identify it, and I left behind. So a lot of the time when I go fossil hunting, I don't take a lot of what I find. I leave it for other people, and I'll leave them on things like fences and walls and things like that for other people to find. And that's one of them. Yeah, I left it with some other rocks for other people to find. The rock itself was grey, while the elements within were a mixture of rusty and cream tones with patterns and textured marks. And then that is a thumbnail for an illustration series that I do eventually want to do, but I've got so many others that I'm interested in doing right now. This is the rough sketch for one of the thumbnails that we saw earlier. So now I will show you what that ended up turning into. So this is the illustration. Again, this is 12 by 9 inches on hot press paper, and it's ink and watercolour with a tiny bit of white gouache. So we went from thumbnail, rough sketch, and then to the finished illustration. We've got some gesture drawing videos now, so this should go by quite quickly. By this point in the sketchbook, I was starting to get a little bit like, let me out. I wanted a new sketchbook. Even though the one that I started after this is also an art creation sketchbook, it's kind of like a refreshing change of the cycle to start a new one. And by this point I was just like, I want to get this finished, I want to get this finished. So I did a bunch of gesture drawing videos. So these are all going to be Just Draw Party videos. This one specifically is video 149. And you have 60-second poses. So you have 6, is it? 5. Yeah. 5 60-second, 4 2-minute poses. And I really love some of these 2-minute poses that I did. And then you get a single 5-minute pose. And I did all of those in black ballpoint pen. Then we've got some blue ballpoint pen here. I did a portrait study here from reference. I didn't really like how it came out, so I ended up revisiting and focusing on the perspective and the angles and everything, because she had a really interesting nose. It was really long, but the angles of her nose and face were just really, really interesting. So I ended up going back and really trying to study the direction and the angles I was seeing. And then this is just another portrait study, both of those in ballpoint pen. These are plein air. So these are some mossy pond rocks, and as I was drawing these, Whizbit, who we also call Wizzy or Wiz, ended up coming out and sitting with me, but after she had some snuggles for a little bit, she she decided that she wanted to squish into the smallest place possible, and around the pond edge there's a bunch of like rocks and bricks and things, and there's like a little gap between the pond edge with all the rocks and bricks, and then there was some more rocks, and she just smooshed herself between the rocks and bricks. So I ended up sketching her really quickly. These are some business cards I picked up when I went to the Corn Exchange in Leeds, and these are some tickets from the Deep in Hull. I really like the tickets because it's just cool that you can keep them because they've got little illustrations on them. This is another gesture drawing video, again trying to get through the paper quickly while still, you know, not just doing nothing on the paper. So again, 60 seconds for this first page, 60 seconds, and then 2 minutes. This one I struggled with a little bit more. And then the 5-minute pose. And then we've got video, so that was video 161. This is video 207. And those were the 60-second ones. I'm quite happy with some of the 60-second ones for this. In particular, that one and that one. It was like a waitress theme one, this. Then we got 2 minute. And then we've got 5 minute. And I really like what I managed to do up here in the 5 minutes, but the legs kind of the question mark is very relevant. The legs kind of just got lost. And then we have video 156, which was all about a long skirt. This one was quite a challenge. So we've got the 60-second ones here. And again, all of this is in ballpoint pen. In this case, it's blue ballpoint pen. And then we've got the 2-minute. I really like that one. And I quite like how I managed to get that, especially like that section. From these, I'd probably say I like this one the most. And then the 5-minute. And then we've got, I did say I did a lot of gesture drawing to finish the sketchbook. We've got video 64. This one I remember being very difficult for me. So we've got the 60-second. I didn't do all of these in one day, by the way. I was doing like 1 or 2 videos a day. 2-minute. She was like miming eating here. Nom. And then the 5-minute. And then this is what my partner drew. To finish off the sketchbook, you get a drawing from my partner. And actually, let's have a look at the back. So this is the back. I glued in an envelope. If you ever want to have like a pouch at the back of your sketchbook, but your sketchbook doesn't have a pouch, glue an envelope in the back. This is some of the starting up my ballpoint pen. Anyone who draws in ballpoint pen, you know that you do sometimes have to give it a little start up help. This is just like a bunch of planning and stuff. I think up here I was planning what I wanted to take with me to America over summer, because I was staying there for nearly 3 months, 2.5 months pretty much. And that was when my partner drew the sketch at the back of the sketchbook, because then we're in a long distance relationship at the moment, but hopefully that's going to change soon. And you know, it was a nice thing to finish the sketchbook by being able to see something my partner drew. So yeah, we've also got what I was fiddling with on here. This is a whisker that fell out of Whizbit. Whizbit has absolutely massive whiskers. As you can see, it goes all the way over to here. And she dropped it. So I ended up sticking it in here for some reason. In here, we just have a bunch of random stuff. We've got stickers, a Digimon card, notes, just all kinds of stuff. Yeah. This is the finished sketchbook. And I've already started a new one. I've already done a video on here starting the new one. But I hope that this was interesting to people. And who knows, maybe I will do some more sketchbook tours soonish. I do have a big pile of old sketchbooks to potentially go through as well. I counted them up recently, but I've already forgotten. I think this was my 10th art creation sketchbook, and the new one I've started is the 11th. I've got it over here. This one is my current sketchbook, and I believe that this one is the 11th. So, and of course I've done other sketchbooks other than art creation sketchbooks, so I have a good amount to potentially show. But I think this video has gone on for long enough. I hope that you enjoyed it and that it was interesting to have a little peek into my sketchbook practice. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!